synopsis. So I've been practicing a lot of mercies, still getting play of the games despite the change in the patch notes. So confirmed good mercy player, I guess. I don't know. No. All in all, my mercy plays have been kind of like on and off. My win percentage is not the greatest, so I'm still thinking my positioning needs some help, especially with working with Pharahs that I'm not used to playing with, like in the duo queue we'll talk about here. But then like I had a couple great games on Nepal with a Junkrat, and I got like a 36 and a 32 elim game in the competitive. Even if we lost, it was just like I felt like I was like, okay, I'm okay with losing this because I performed well, regardless of what the team is saying. And like getting eliminations is far more important than getting the top damage. Like you should be getting top damage to Junkrat. Like your stuff does crazy amounts of damage, but like getting the eliminations is that much more important because that means people are actually dying and team fights are being swayed. So you're actually like having an impact regardless of the team. And I know that's not the end all be all of like being a good player is elims and versus your deaths. Like KD doesn't really matter. It's all about objective control, but it definitely helps. So it's a indicator of how you're doing. And then as of today, there was a big DDoS attack for late night time for a lot of you guys, but for me it was like normal time for Japanese servers. But I was practicing quick play by like insta-locking Ana in every game, so that I get practice like shooting my allied Genjis and sleep darting enemy Genjis because their hitboxes are so hard to hit. So I've been practicing that.
Man,
but yeah, like, that's basically it.
It's funny that you mentioned that you've been playing a lot of Junkrat and Ana, because there's three heroes that I've been seeing a lot more everywhere, and that is Junkrat, Ana, and Mei, especially Mei. Like she's like the new
Mei.
flavor of the month.
Yeah, no doubt.
She's really good right now with the ultimate and stuff. But I think Junkrat is one of those heroes that hasn't been getting as much of a spotlight just because he doesn't get featured as much in the pro scene and stuff. So people kind of tend to be a little weary when somebody picks it. Like, oh no, just pick a McCree or pick a Reaper instead, right? But honestly, like good Junkrats, especially on the right maps where there's a lot of choke points or any of the King of the Hill maps, where you can create a lot of mayhem and just like disruption everywhere. Like good Junkrats can be a pain in the butt, man.
You don't even have to be a good Junkrat. You just have to have a good choke and decent positioning.
Yeah, as long as you know where to spam and you're throwing your grenades in the right direction, is like you can do so much damage.
I mean, even if you're giving a Zarya like a little bit of charge on her shield and she's sitting there with her things, like, oh, I'm just gonna gain charge. It's like, dude, that's only 200 HP. I'm gonna blast through that shield and then destroy you very quickly.
Yeah.
So I've been able to take down some really overzealous Zarya players in Koth maps just because they just let me do what I want and they let me sit in the corner.
I also think Junkrat is a great counter to things like Roadhog or Winston. Like you don't think about it that much, but like leaping Winstons, if you can put your traps in the right parts, like you just catch them off guard and just it's a huge body that it's easy for you to hit. So if they fall in your trap, it's like GG for them. Same with like Genji. Now that your trap actually locks
you took what I was gonna say.
I'll let you say it. Go for it.
Okay. I was gonna say like that's the reason I've been playing more Junkrat on Koth is because Genji can't just kill my crap now. Like he has to dash through the trap and get rooted, and then I kill him.
Yeah.
So it's really, really great for players that are playing Genji. So I'm seeing a lot less Genji on Koth when I'm picking the Junkrat into it. So they'll be switching off quite a bit.
Yeah, I think it's not as effective against Tracer, even though it can be. But against Genjis, I think it's becoming a little more effective.
Yeah. Because the Genji's used to just like dash through it and destroy the trap at the same time, as well as damaging anything in the line. But now they'll only damage into the line up to the trap, and then they get damaged and rooted.
Oh, it's
so
beautiful
it's a big
when
change.
you trap him. It's just beautiful seeing a rooted Genji,
great.
And you're like, oh yes.
Sometimes I've been able to do some really crazy stuff, especially on that Nepal map where it's really congested, like inside of the building. And there's that big roof and then the fall off where you can boot people off with Lucio, where I'll throw the mine as a spacing tool between me and the Genji. And even if it doesn't hit the Genji, while I'm in the air, I'm throwing the trap straight down below me. So the Genji dashes under me, usually to try to get behind me and flank me. But what he doesn't see is me dropping the trap down. So he like dashes into the trap before it even hits the ground and gets bear trapped like right in the steps. And then I just pop him with a grenade before he can react, and they're dead. So it's really great.
Nice.
Because the trap does a crap ton of damage.
Yeah. It's like hunting the hunter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's great. So I really like playing it when I'm duo queuing with Roadhogs because, you know, there's a little bit of lore to it, but logistically, hook 'em and cook 'em kind of works. So I really like the Australian duo. So I'm a big fan.
Yeah, we should do a going deep on Junkrat eventually. I think that would be a really fun hero to talk about.
So hyped. Let's do it. Okay. So let's jump into a quick news update that I saw actually from a Hearthstone commentator, Frodan. He's a Tempo Storm guy, but they had the top 10 most watched games on Twitch. And if you look at it, Overwatch is sitting at 5th, which if you remember, Overwatch was actually sitting at like 6 and 8 on the regular. Even at like its peak, it went all the way up to like 2 or 3 and then would be number 1 at odd hours, right? But like just this last month, so this is a monthly total, not like a daily thing or an hourly change. Like Overwatch is 5th, so that's pretty impressive. And they had 18.3 million hours, but 3.1 of that 18.3 of the hours were esports only. So that's a pretty significant margin of casual streaming total hours of Overwatch watched. That's pretty good.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you're a small streamer or a non-esport streamer, like in an esport event, it's a good time to maybe try that streaming thing out. So it's on the +3, I guess they said, on the change rise. So check it out. Maybe you get your roots in there.
Something that's really impressive to watch right now is if you go on Twitch, on the top 10 list, like 4 of those games are all Blizzard. It's like, wow, Overwatch, Hearthstone, and I guess 3.
Amazing.
Yeah, I guess 3 out of 10.
Hearthstone, Warcraft, Overwatch, sometimes Heroes.
Sometimes Heroes, although honestly, Heroes is pretty far down the list most of the time.
Yeah, it's like 10.
Yeah. But that's still very impressive.
Still amazing.
Yeah, noting that most games that ever make it to the top 10 are over there for like a week tops, and then they completely disappear off the grid. You never see them again.
Yeah.
But
it's like Dota and League, and those are like the kings of the crop for
and
Twitch.
Counter-Strike.
And then after
Dota,
that's
League,
like Blizzard and Counter-Strike.
And then all the Blizzard games, and then like a rotating roster of different stuff. Yeah. But I think it's really cool. I think there's a lot of future for Overwatch. Like, they're pushing this game so hard as far as the spectator and esports realm that I don't think Overwatch is going anywhere, and the viewership is just going to increase. I think one of the things right now is that at least for tournaments, it's a little hard to spectate and get like the full grasp of what is happening. Even if you are already a player of the game, even if you understand the game deeply, sometimes it's like, oh, what just happened? I didn't see anything.
And you're still missing stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So
like,
I think
you could be watching a player's perspective, and there's still 6 other players' perspectives that you're totally missing out on.
For sure.
So it's a very hard game to watch sometimes.
I think I can't really solve this problem right now. I'm pretty sure that this is a huge problem that the Blizzard team or the Overwatch team has right now, is coming up with a spectator mode that is very intuitive and lets you know everything that is happening at a moment's notice, right? Right now, we still have a little way to go. I think the caster, the tournaments, all that are doing a great job at find a compromise between, everything that is happening in
working
Overwatch
with what they have.
Working with what they have, yeah, exactly. But I think once we can improve on that and make Overwatch a little more accessible for your average viewer, I wouldn't doubt seeing Explode going into like the top 3.
Oh, absolutely.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I think that's a top priority for their esports division of Overwatch, and trying to work that on the back end. They want to make sure that they ship something that's great, even though right now it's not that great. It's doable, and I think when they roll out whatever's coming, they want to basically just say, just like the Overwatch launch, right? Like for player, like not just spectator, but just playing the game. It was shipped out. It was flawless. It was great experience for players to play the game. I think the next big step for them is going to be the spectator and the esports watching experience. They're just going to roll out everything, and it's going to be like, I think they're just going to go like, boom, all at once. Here it is, huge changes, and enjoy. And it's perfect, and it's like ready to go. I think that's what Blizzard's looking to do, and that's probably why it's taking so long to get there.
Yep.
And Overwatch is very new. So let's not belabor the point. We spent 20 minutes roughly on starting the show. So let's get into it. Let's get into duo queue / solo queue wrap up from the last time we did it. So Andres, kick us off, man. What do we got?
Sure. So why are we talking about duo queue and solo queue? First of all, obviously, it's the most common way of playing the game. Most people just play by themselves or with a friend, and then sometimes go out of their way to create large groups and try to organize them. But we all know playing by yourself or playing a group has advantages and disadvantages. So today we wanted to talk a little bit about the advantages and what you should look out for when you're solo queuing and duo queuing. First of all, the most obvious advantage is that when you solo or duo, you're not going against pre-made groups. You're not facing other groups of 5 or 6, which at the end of the day tend to be a little more organized and coordinated. And if you maybe don't have a group of friends at hand that you can always play with and that are around your same level, that you can like coordinate really well and you get along really well with them, sometimes it might be easier to just duo or solo, because you then avoid tons of headaches of having to coordinate a bunch of people that might be at different skill levels and yada schedules, all that stuff. So you avoid all that hassle, and then you don't have to go against other groups that maybe have gone through the hassle of taking care of that part and are very coordinated and very well communicated. So because of that, your groups in general, when you're solo and duo, require a little bit less coordination. You're not gonna run into groups running crazy strategies, at professional things or anything. You're mostly gonna run into, I would say, moderately disorganized people. Like Overwatch has gotten to the point where most people know how to play the game and know kind of like the basics of what they have to do. But when you're solo and duo, teams don't necessarily gel that well together. A lot of times you have like one player that is off doing whatever it is that they do in a lonely corner over there, or the one guy that decides that he needs to flank when the other team is pushing. So you always have kind of like this like outliers. But as you rank up in the game, like usually people kind of like know what to do and where to follow, but coordination is generally a little less when you're queuing like this. I would also say that you could consider this an advantage or a disadvantage depending on your playstyle and who you are. But when you're solo and duo queuing, individual skill tends to be emphasized a little more, both mechanical and strategic skill, just because teams are not necessarily as coordinated and you're not necessarily relying on your teammates to pull off incredible combos and stuff like this. You're relying sometimes more on your individual skill of knowing where
and
to be.
Intuition.
Yeah, knowing how to place yourself. And if you're able to get kills constantly, this will generally have a bigger impact when you're solo and duo queuing as compared to when you're grouping up, where team synergy and execution at that point start mattering a lot more, because you can make up for maybe some of your individual skill just because your team is gelling so well together and you can coordinate so well. If that makes any sense.
The group matchup becomes more important than the individual matchup at that point once you start getting teammates.
Yeah, exactly. And the last thing I want to say is communication usually when you're duo and solo is optional, but I would say still highly encouraged. and the better you are at communicating with your team, and we'll talk about this a little more in depth later. The better it will be when you're playing with these teams. But you just have to be a little more selective of what you communicate when you're in this type of queues. So how about you
Yeah,
take it,
and
Rob? Because you know you've been doing a lot
sure.
of duo queue and like guide us through a little bit of that.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of duo and triple Q, and even though I feel like it's been an overall negative experience, I don't think that the experience has been without learning. So even if you're, losing 4 or going 2-8 like I did over the last 10 games, that going 2-8 can be an experience that is worthless. I feel like at the end of going 2-8, you've realized something isn't working and you can learn from it. So these may not be the right things that I'm learning, but I want to make sure that you guys understand that as the podcaster here, we aren't pros. Like, we're learning with you, and we're trying to offer what we're learning on the table as being a potential option for failure sometimes, or even an option for success when we do succeed. And then we're also sharing some things that we get from listeners in our Discord, in our emails, etc. So I'll do that as a preface here. And then to wrap up what Andres said about communication, I feel like communication is the deciding factor most often in duo queue and solo queue and triple queue. Is the level of communication and or mental toughness of that team will be a big determining factor whether you can come up with win or loss, even despite coordination, individual skill, etc., because the mental aspect of the game is very strong. So, and then the communication side, you can have good communicators that don't speak in your chat, but rather good communicators that listen and react to what's being said is equally as valuable as presenting information verbally or through my ultimate's ready, or I'm grouping up here, or please heal me, something like that. Okay,
you're right about that. Like, when we say you're a good communicator in your team, we don't necessarily say like you're always on voice comms and like spewing every single bit of information that you can. Actually, sometimes that's quite detrimental.
That's
when
a
you're
detriment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes somebody can be on the voice comms very minimally, or not even in voice comms, but still let their team know a lot about what their plan is. Thankfully, Overwatch has a lot of tools to kind of like let your team know what you're doing, like letting them know what your ultimate charge is at, or if you want to group up, if you want to kind of like fight on the point, that sort of thing. Although voice comms is always the best way if you just want to get the point across really fast.
Yeah, exactly. Usually voice comms is the best, especially if you've done some little bit of research. I may try to put this in the show notes later if I remember, but look up like map calls spots or something like that, because there's some websites that I remember getting from Deathblow of the High Noon podcast sent me a couple things when I asked him how he figured out what to do for map calls. They actually have like names that sometimes the casters are using, or sometimes people are like inventing for live competitive events, and you can just adopt what they're calling it, or you can invent your own with your team or your solo duo queue. Like, this is where we're going, and those map calls can be very helpful in a pinch. But let's get into the duo queue, because that's a little bit more for the team oriented stuff. But like in duo queue, how to duo queue like a boss. Okay, so when you're duo queuing, make sure that the first thing you do, I think this is probably the number one takeaway. So I want to start off the bat with something strong, and then you can kind of get a little bit more secondary after this. But the number one priority for me when I'm duo queuing is I'm duo queuing with twofold, that myself and my partner, or partners if you're multi queuing, that each person has different hero pools. So that means that I'm not like Mercy main and Reinhardt main. That is a single hero pool. But rather that each player has, as much as possible, different hero pools as possible. So for instance, Andres and I work really well together in duo queue because we have a very small amount of overlap with which heroes we feel comfortable on, and the one heroes that we excel at, aka your hero pool of specialty, tends to be very opposite. So Andres, what are your top 3 heroes that you play in damage, and then you probably have like 1 or 2 heroes that you fall back on in each role, correct?
Yeah, I think that's a good advice. Like whoever you're duo queuing with, you kind of want to have like a very different kind of like approaches, because then you can fill a wide range of things for your team, right? I've been queuing a lot with Shockmaster from our Discord, and he is a Zenyatta main, and I'm a McCree main, which by default kind of like complement each other. Like, hey, I got the base DPS of the team, and hey, you got like main heals offense of the team with like awesome ultimates and stuff. And the Discord blends really well with McCree. Obviously, in certain games, some other guy would already pick McCree, or some 2 guys would already pick like main DPS. And like the key is being flexible here. Like a lot of the times, him and me would pick McCree and Zenyatta, but we would be totally open to switching and stuff. Like sometimes, even other times, another guy would pick Zenyatta. And at the beginning of the game, we'd just be very politely be like, hey, guys, Shock is a really good Zenyatta. And most of the time, people would be like, oh, yeah, no problems, dude. Like, they would look at their profile and see like 130 hours on Zenyatta or something like that. They'll be like, oh, yeah, of course, you take Zenyatta. And they wouldn't mind switching.
Or the prestige 4 times and be like, oh, okay, we'll give him what he wants.
Yeah. Or sometimes like one guy would be like, oh man, I'm not doing so good with McCree. And he'll be like, hey, my friend is a really good McCree. He can take it over. And he'll be like, yeah, sure thing. So we would mainly try to McCree and Zenyatta, since those are the heroes we're the most comfortable with. But a lot of games, like I would go Lucio, and it would be like Lucio, Zenyatta. Or like if they would take Zenyatta already, or we already had both healers taken because people just chose it in the beginning. He would go like Zarya, and I would go McCree, Zarya McCree, or sometimes even like I'll go like Reinhardt Zarya. But basically, we were always kind of like offering that constant McCree, constant Zenyatta, which are 2 very flexible heroes in the meta right now, and like people pick him a lot. And then we would switch according to what the team needed.
I think that's important. Like that was my other like second thing that I was going to say, the twofold is like queuing together, making sure you have different hero pools, but that you are the most, like you need to look at yourself in solo, duo, and even triple and quadra queue, that your primary role in playing Overwatch should be to be flex position. It should not to be like I'm an offense player or defense player rather, or I'm a DPS, or I'm a tank, or I'm a support main. Like even that broad of a mentality is sometimes detrimental to your entire team. If you happen to jump into another team that you're solo queue and there's like a triple or quadra queue or duo queue where those people have already got double support covered, and I'm a support main. Absolutely. So I need to be flexible.
I was going to say that, yes, I think you're right about the flexibility. I think a lot of people would argue like, hey, but what about getting really good at one hero and kind of like maining, or at one role, maining that role? And I'd say that that is valid. And obviously maining one role, just focusing on a small pool of heroes, and especially like one that specifically does a particular job, can make you a lot better at those heroes than somebody who's focusing on a lot. But I think that this is only beneficial at the very top level of play, where other players are so good at their heroes that to keep up with them, you have to just focus on 1 to 3 heroes, and just practice them a lot. And like, let's be real, at that point, it becomes a matter of time, right? Like, do you have enough time to be good at all these heroes? But we're talking about the cream of the crop here, like master and up, right?
You gotta bring yourself back down to your reality of silver, gold, diamond, platinum level, right?
Yeah, I think even up to diamond, I think higher diamond is where you start seeing people really start to specialize and kind of like branch into very specific heroes. Yeah, but anything below that, I think it's a lot easier to rank up if you're flexible and you're just generally good at a good variety of heroes. Like, you don't have to be good at every hero, but have at least one hero in every role that you're good at, and then have one role that you are like generally good at all the heroes in.
Yep. So I think the best advice I could say is pick a role that you want to main. So for me, mine is support. For Andres, it's DPS. And for Shock, it's like flex. I think Shock's actually a flex main because he plays Zarya and Zen. And like those are his main two. And those are pretty opposite characters. So, but anyways, my main role is support. And I'm trying my best to learn that role. So Zen, Symmetra, Mercy, Lucio, and Ana. Those are my 5 main characters, okay? But in that role, I have my 2 favorites. I have Ana and I have Mercy. But it's more important that I'm learning one main person in every role, including defense. So that basically means you want to translate to a defensive and an offensive DPS, and then a tanky person, whether you want to learn the main tank role or the off tank role. That's totally dependent on your play style. I don't think anybody and everybody should try to have a main tank and an off tank. I think it's okay to only have one. And then also same thing with support, like being an off support or a main support. I think those are terms that are getting to be more popular with the 2 tank, 2 support, 2 DPS rules, right? So please take this with a grain of salt. This is the experience that we have so far. So there's always going to be exceptions to this. This is kind of like broad brush statements. We're trying to get you some info to help you out and test out on your own.
Yeah.
And so mostly experiential / anecdotal, not like hard and fast numbers.
And I was going to say, crap, I forgot I was going to say, just keep going.
Okay. I've got a lot of stuff to cover, and we still have many things to do. So we're at like 37 minutes right now. But anyway, so my next point is okay, so again, remember these are going to be, stair stepping down in importance. So this next layer is that you want to go into every game with your partner, not only in different roles, different hero pools, but heroes that synergize with each other in those separate hero pools. So examples would be Ana and Rein. So you have the Ana Rein combo is basically your initiation and mega attack when you're on offense, on payload, or on assault or point capture. Then you have like Zarya Lucio. So this is the Graviton speed boost team setup. So this is basically the 2 roles that are some of the most unselfish roles, where you basically are going into the fray. You are the shot callers by how you move. So you're not even saying anything. You're just saying, let's drop the beat and here's the Graviton and good luck. Like the team has to flex with that. So Graviton, speed boost, and defensive ult. Then you have the Mercy Pharah combo we talked about so many times. This is what I call the roam the skies combo for duo Q. So you have the damage boost plus the flexibility of jumping around the map in the air, both vertically and horizontally between your teammates to pop heals and pop damage in team fights. Then you have the Zarya Hanzo synergistic wombo combo, I call the team kill combo. So you have that one, which is where you lock them down with Graviton and then you blast them with dragons or wolves, depending on your skin. And then you have the Zen Lucio, which is basically, this is a little different than the hero pool changing, but rather like the role coverage. So you could say, okay, so I'm running with Shock. He's a Zen main, and I can play Lucio or I can play Mercy. So those 2 are like the full coverage support. It's like, hey, nobody wants to support. Boom, we got you covered. Then you have the Roadhog main, which is basically the zone slow combo. So Roadhog gets the picks, Mei covers the choke and slows people down as they come through it. So it's kind of like a slow trickle. You're trying to get the opponent's team on when the opponents are on offense, you're on defense. You're trying to slowly trickle them in by getting easy picks with Roadhog hooks or getting slows with Mei on the tanks and making sure you can deal with them. And then you have the flank backline. So this is a little bit of a weird combo. You run like Tracer Zen. It sounds really strange, but Zen can actually, from the back line, not be engaging with the flanker, but also be engaging with the flanker by dropping a discord on the target the Tracer may call. So if you're duo queue, let's say Shock's playing Zen and I'm playing Tracer, or Andres is playing Tracer, for example. Andres is jumping in the back lines and saying, hey, can you discord so-and-so? Or Zen's just saying, hey, it discorded Roadhog. I got him in my sights. So Andres does a double blink, runs into Roadhog, and just deletes him because you do so much damage to Tracer, plus the Zen. It's really crazy. And then you have like the whole DPS coverage on defense or sometimes offense on Koth. If you run Junkrat and Soldier, this is my last like extra option. These are not exhaustive lists, but this is the defensive choke zone coverage plus hit scan. So Soldier is reliable, consistent damage. That's instant. It's always hitting. It's a mess. And then you have Junkrat that is adding additional pressure to wherever the chokes are or even the zone control. So this could be a terror on Koth maps, especially Nepal. Like Junkrat and Soldier can do some serious damage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I think that the main
That's
takeaway,
all I got.
Yeah, well, the main takeaway is picking heroes that complement each other. I think one thing to know too is when you're duo queuing with a partner, if you want to go for a specific combo, I would say pick it as soon as possible so that the rest of your team knows what you're going for. But then also don't be like too hard-headed, right? Like if the rest of your team just definitely doesn't want to go with that and they're just maybe good with other heroes, that the heroes that you picked at first maybe don't complement themselves as well, be open to switching and stuff. But I feel like most of the time when you're duo queuing and you pick like two heroes that complement each other well from the get-go, people are more willing to be like, okay, let's work around that, and then at least you give your team kind of like that information. But like I said, be willing to
give
swap.
Them that chance to
you give them the chance to be like, hey, this is what we want to do, kind of like what we're good at. What do you guys think?
It gives your team to basically have the chance in hero select to then make adjustments on that game plan. It's like, hey, if you're going to do the Zarya and then we're going to also run the Hanzo, then we need a strong DPS to complement that. So I'm going to run, McCree or Soldier. And then if we're going to run those, then we should have a supporting or a main tank role like Reinhardt or maybe even a good diva. So you're having those two things complement the team comp that you've already built just with two people.
Yeah, like you said over here, you don't need to be freaking Batman and Robin to carry. You just need to let your team know what your plan is with your partner, and hopefully the other guys will like jump on board and be like, okay, we want to do this. Sometimes it happens the other way around. Sometimes you go into a game where another duo queue does this. They already have a plan that they want to go with, and sometimes it's up to you to be like, okay, let's roll with that. We'll complement your comp.
Yeah, so even if you're doing the Ana Rhine combo, stuff that can bonus that is the Ana with maybe a Genji. Like that combo is gross. Or Ana, like even doing the whatever it's called, the nano boost on Soldier is really good too. So you have all kinds of little options that you can give your Ana if you're duo queuing Ana Rhine and you're playing, let's say I'm playing Ana, then I have 4 other people that have the opportunity then to say, hey, I can play this hero in my pool, and that works really well with what they're trying to do. And even though they're a solo queue player, they've now actually expanded their options to be closer to maybe a fresh new person that's starting to play with a group of 3, even though they're a complete stranger. They understand how it works, at least on paper. So if you look at the section that we've kind of gone through already, a lot of what we've said is things that make sense on paper, or things that make sense all the way up until you finish getting through Hero Select. The rest of this will then come down to individual skill, mechanical ability, and execution. So the only other thing we have left to talk about is, practically speaking, mental game. So then these last 3 points, like we already actually mentioned one of them, is you don't need to be Batman or Robin to carry. Like, yes, it comes down to you and your ally are the only 2 people in your group that you can control. And ideally, you can even only, or I'm not even ideally. That is the ideal situation. Like, incidentally, you only can control yourself and your personal skill, your execution, and your mechanical ability. Like, those are things that you have to practice and why you're trying to get better. But the other 4 people need you just as much as you need them. So please remember that. Everyone's trying to win. Everyone tries to do their best. Nobody's trying to lose on purpose unless they're just mega tilted. So that being said, don't be afraid then to call out your partner on their misplays in a constructive way, and try to share how you would constructively call out your partner on a bad play, or or make an adjustment based off of how they made a mistake to your allies that are not in your duo queue. Because that mental aspect of tilting is so swingy with this game. And to go along with that, don't tolerate negative attitudes in your team. It tilts you more than it tilts the players, or it tilts you and it tilts the players that you're performing with on your own team. So even if somebody is being negative, try to dissipate the issue. And if it doesn't really work out, then it's probably best to just mute them. Still play with them. You can still, my ultimate's ready. Let's group up. Thank you. I'm here. Or hi, like I'm right next to you. You can just send those automated commands in the game, the emotes.
Yeah, and just to build on that, because I think there's kind of like an etiquette that you should follow when you're queuing solo or duo. And I mean, nobody forces you to follow this kind of like etiquette or anything, but I would say that 90% of the time, if you follow kind of like certain guidelines or certain attitudes, you are more likely to succeed or to work with a team that is willing to work together. You're more likely to bring people into your side than alienating them, and then everything goes to shit, right? Because nobody wants to cooperate. Go straight
south.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd say some advice for the people who are solo and duo queuing, because I know we have a lot of people who do it that listen to us and are kind of stuck in their rank or keep going with teammates that don't want to cooperate. They just want to do whatever they want. So here's some advice for that. Be flexible. I know we already touched on that, but have the hero that you're good at. Let your team know that you're good at that hero, but then also realize that there's so many people out there in the world and you're just queuing randomly with them. Like, you also have to understand that why should they abide to you, right? Like, why should they believe that you should McCree or Genji over them? Like, you also have to think that on their side, they're like, well, I'm also a good McCree or a good Genji. So be flexible with that sort of thing. Be like, okay, if you really want to McCree, let's try it. And then if things don't work out, you can politely be like, hey, man, how about you let me McCree? And we'll see how things roll like that. But be flexible in the heroes that you want to pick. Don't always be like, no, I'm going to be McCree and nothing else. Like, practice some other heroes. Like, practice your Reinhardt or your Diva. See how your Lucio is doing. Maybe try your Mei. And that way, when somebody else takes your hero, you can swap to another hero and also be decent at them and not feel completely useless. Another thing
don't estimate the power of a comfort pick. I know we say that almost every episode, but man, letting people play what they like to play or what they're comfortable playing, never to be underestimated.
Yeah, and sometimes trust your teammates too. Like,
oh yeah,
they can also do some work if you are setting them up for success as well. On that note, don't bash on your teammates, especially the ones that are feeling like the essential roles. Like, don't bash on your healers, don't bash on your tanks. If they're doing something that you think is wrong, like you said, try to point it out in a very constructive way. Don't just be like, why is the DPS not doing damage? Or, oh man, I got gold kills and gold damage as Zarya. Which I'm going to do a little disclaimer here.
Happens a lot.
It happens a lot. Like, Zarya, Winston, and Reinhardt, especially now that Annas are kind of like roaming around all the time.
Raining.
It's not uncommon it's not uncommon for these characters to be top damage and kills a lot of the time, especially like over a McCree, which is like, think about how Zarya, Reinhardt, and Winston attack. They do like massive AoE, which if the enemy team is like clumped up together, you're gonna rack up an insane amount of damage. Not only that, if you just touch him once with your attack and then your McCree finish them off with just one headshot, then maybe you racked up like 500 damage and you still get counted for that kill.
Yeah, you get more damage.
Yeah. Even though it was your McCree who got the final headshot and he only got maybe like 150 damage and one kill count on him, you got like 3 kills and 1,000 damage because McCree killed one, Genji finished up the other one, and you kind of like spam and stuff. So just a little disclaimer, because I've seen a lot of people being like, why do I have gold damage as tank? And it's like, because that's what you're supposed to do.
Or I'm the best Torb because I have gold damage. Debatable.
Yeah, exactly. So let's not measure things with that. So don't bash your teammates, especially because of these things. Like, they might be doing their job, and just because you're looking at stats, you're definitely not getting the whole story or the whole picture. It's very biased to just judge your teammates based on the stats, and that's one of the reasons why Blizzard has not made these things public. You cannot see a list of who has the most kills or deaths.
Final blows.
You can't see that in the game with your other teammates, and that's there for a reason. Is because these things are very misleading, and you cannot gauge a player performance solely on those. And especially, don't be bashing your other teammates because of them. It only tilts your team and makes you look kind of like a douchebag.
Pretty much.
All right. Next thing.
Is that most of it? Yeah. Here we go. Sorry.
Yeah,
I had to scroll down.
We're just talking about mainly like stuff that will help you, like etiquette that will help you in these games to kind of improve. Follow through with your team. Like, I know that everyone has different opinions, and in a team of 6 people, when you have 6 different heads thinking about the same problem, there's gonna be different approaches. There's gonna be different solutions, and in honesty, the best thing you can do is offer and suggest kind of like a plan of action. But if your team is definitely committed to a different plan, I would say that you shouldn't be stubborn and kind of be like, oh, well, I'm just going to go off, do my thing then, and F you guys, I'm not going to follow you. I think that's a mistake. And even if you don't agree with the decision, you should stick with the team as much as possible. We all understand that sometimes some decisions are very stupid, and that happens, but it's part of the game, right? Like, die together with the stupid decision, and then on the next push, offer your suggestion. Be like, hey guys, how about we do this instead? And then that way you didn't bash heads with anyone on your team. You didn't alienate anyone. You gave it a try. Who knows, maybe that stupid idea ends up working because it was so stupid that the enemy team wasn't expecting it. And because you followed through with it and you were there to help out your team, it actually worked out. And this actually happens all the time.
This happened actually to me. We actually ended up winning with an attack bastion on Gibraltar because I was like, guys, let's not bash the bastion. They're Koreans. So they probably can't understand anything that we're saying. And we can run in there and we can embrace it and we can play a protect pres strat, or we can just like sit here and tilt at him the whole game. So the decision's yours. I'm going to just play the Ana and just sit behind him and just unload rounds into this bastion and make sure he doesn't die. And they're like, okay. So we like Zarya, Reinhardt, and then we had like another Mercy or Lucio just to heal AoE, and it worked. It was insane. I have no clue. It will never happen again, but it worked.
No, I had a very similar story. We were playing Koth on Nepal, and right off the bat, this guy goes Torb, like no questions asked. And we're talking about diamond level. Like, we were playing with mostly diamonds, and I was like platinum, and this guy goes Torb, and he was the highest level in the team too. So we're like, okay. At the beginning of the map, we talked about it as a team. Like, we were vocal about it. We didn't bash on the guy or anything, but we're like, we're rolling with a Torb. I guess we're gonna be short on this. So we're like, let's just run with one tank,
cover that
double healer, and 2 DPS, so we can cover the Torb. And we let it know, like, hey, we're probably gonna have a hard time because they have a Pharah, and you're probably not gonna be that effective because of the Pharah. Sure enough, like, he dies immediately.
Did the work, man.
Yeah, we lose the first match, like, no questions asked. Next match, he's still playing Torb, and we're like, oh man, this is really not gonna work out. So we offer a couple of suggestions. We're like, hey, they're running this, and this instead of the Torb. If you run a Reaper and then we get a second tank, this might work. So at first he like doesn't talk or say anything. We still play the match, make a couple adjustments. We still lose it, but not as bad. This whole time we have not been like yelling at the Torb or anything. I mean, we did we did let it known that we didn't agree with the Thor pick. We offered our own suggestions, and then by the third match,
You drop it.
he finally is like, okay, I'm gonna go Reaper. Turns out the guy was an amazing Reaper. Like, he was a really good player. I guess he was just having some fun with Torb on the thing. On the third game, we gel really well together and like obliterate,
Just cleaned him out.
just clean them out. Like, it was like a different game at that point. And we then proceed to win the next 2 rounds and win the entire match. Obviously,
So you just
it was
flipped
it was a lot. Like, if we had just gone Reaper from the get go, we would probably like won it at first. But
Yeah.
and like I guess like the takeaway of the story was that instead of like tilting at the guy and bashing him, being like, "Oh, Torb sucks. You're an awful player. You should uninstall and go on witness protection program. Change your name. You should get a new life."
Witness
You know,
protection.
like this whole thing that people do on the internet. We didn't do that. You know what I mean? We're just positive. We played our game. We tried to adapt to the freaking Torb. It definitely didn't work out. Finally, the guy realized, and he ended up being a great player. We won the match, and that would have been a match that we could have easily lost if everyone would have been like,
Sure.
"Oh, F you," and stuff. So just like to add to
Yeah.
your story.
Yep. But we really need to wrap it up. I think that's basically the show. We might have time to cover one of these emails, Andres, or we can just save the emails for next week and address them both, and then we can go through Patreon deets.
Let's
this
talk
week.
about. I think we have time for this one email from Tom S. I think it's relevant to this discussion. How about you go ahead and read it and we talk about it for a bit.
Okay, so we got one from Tom S and one from Tim S. Tim, sorry, pal, we're gonna put you off till next week. But
We'll get to you,
great
Tim.
email.
Yeah, we'll get to you. But
we read
thanks for
your
writing
email,
in.
and it's really good content. So we'll get to it. We're gonna include it. We'll get to it. So Tom says, "Hi guys, great podcast. Just wondering if you had some more advice. I played Lucio on Anubis, got some golds in time on the point, kills, and healing. So 17k plus change on the healing. We lost, and I dropped my ranked points. So now I'm sitting all the way down at 1300. Yikes." He's like, he tells us his age, which I'll leave out for sake of clarity. And he has a family and a high-end career, but I love to jump in the games when I get the few minutes in the evenings. I can't commit to having a group because my daily schedule is consumed by a bunch of responsibilities that I want to honor. So I have a few questions. Why do I have to go down in rank if I'm carrying a bunch of peoples in a pickup group? Would it seem that if a random group comes close and I do my job, then I should get a bump rather than drop lower? And then second question, let's just address this question first. So basically the synopsis is, why do I have to go down in rank if I'm doing well and I'm carrying, even if the game is close and I did my job? Why do I have to get bumped down? So this is actually a pretty easy logistic answer, right?
Well, I would say the first thing is this. One, this is a team game. So even though you might be doing well individually, the way this game is set up is that you cannot succeed unless your whole team is succeeding. And I know it can be frustrating, especially if you think you're doing your job well and you're playing the game right, and then your teammates seem to be making a lot of mistakes and throwing the game. It can be quite discouraging, but at all times, I think that you should always keep in mind that this sounds really cliche, but there's no I in team, right? There's no, hey, I'm doing well, but we're losing. Like, you have to think about it as, is your team doing well? If you're doing well and your team is not doing well, then you're not doing well. Like, I don't know how else to put it.
The other thing that I'll just throw in my chunk of change before we go to the next one is, if you're carrying and doing well, the reason that doesn't let you go down besides the team game aspect is because Blizzard has structured the matchmaking to be skill rating mixed with progression. So anytime you have progression plus skill rating to reflect an exact skill level, at a 50% win rate, you're not going to be progressing very much or very often if you're breaking even. Like, that's what we said was an issue with the previous skill rating system, is people wanted to see themselves climb. But in a skill-based system, if you're going 50% win rate or if even 51% win rate, you could be climbing very, 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 very slowly, and they don't really see it, or have those swings where you drop a bunch of games. So you have to have that kind of mentality. Like, I went up 6 ranks after like 10 games of going up and down the yo-yo, and I just happened to win the right games a couple more times than I lost the games that I probably shouldn't have lost. If that makes sense. So progression mixed with skill, you're going to have a little bit of leeway in that.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to say is it would be a nightmare to try to track it like any other way. Like if Blizzard was to just focus on individual performance and award you points, like let's say you lose, but still award you ranking points because you performed really well, trust me, like it would be a nightmare balancing that system. And there would be like so many unfair situations that Reddit would catch on fire. First of all,
Oh yeah,
the Blizzard forums would collapse. They would be like DDoS attacks pretty much every day. Like we would start like the Blizzard apocalypse, basically. So I don't know if that's the route like you want to go on measuring that kind of points. It's just a lot easier and cleaner if you win the match, you gain points. If you lose the match, you lose points. Having said that, I know it can be very frustrating if you are doing your job. To address that point, I would say, and you ask it in your second question when you say, should I be friending up with players that are pulling their weight and jumping into their matches? And my answer is yes. Yes, you should. Because this is a team game. You should, and not everyone will be compatible with you. Like you'll play with a lot of players and you should find the ones that like mesh with you, right? Like Rob said earlier in the episode, find players that complement your playstyle. So if you're playing Lucio, I would say the best thing you can find is a guy that knows how to tank or loves tanking, or a really good DPS, a guy that knows how to shoot.
That is dedicated to protecting you.
Yeah, or just can get kills. Because one thing that is going to be hard to do is carrying a game as Lucio. Like as Lucio, you can offer a lot of things, but especially in the lower ranks, it's going to be quite hard to just carry the game just with the Lucio, because you don't have like a lot of killing potential. You have a lot of like initiation potential, a lot of setup potential and protection that you can offer your teammates. But if your teammates don't have a way to capitalize on that, like if you don't have a good tank that is contesting the point, if you don't have a good DPS that is taking advantage of that initiation potential that you're giving him to like go in and get a couple of kills, you're gonna struggle a little bit. So I would say, you say you're sitting around the 1300 rank. I'd say at that point it would be easier, especially if you're an FPS guy that's been playing it for a long time, to work on your own fundamentals, or maybe heroes where you can carry a little easier. So pick something like Genji, McCree, even Pharah. This level can work really, really well. Heroes that have a lot of killing potential, and practice with those a little bit, because especially I would say in anything below gold, if your fundamentals with these heroes are good and you get a good grasp of them, it'd be a lot easier for you to carry your team than at playing Lucio. Lucio starts shining a lot more if you're really good Lucio when you start playing with other players who are better at their classes. So I would say like at platinum level, Lucios are super coveted, because a good Lucio in your team can really make the difference on the match.
Especially with contesting objectives when you're ahead or behind. Very helpful. But yeah, I think that even goes along with the rest of the email that he talks about, which is, should I tell people when I'm going to ult, or even if my team is rarely taking advantage of a push or trickling in? Any advice on getting the team on board for a coordinated effort? I will say that, yes, sometimes it's difficult, but a lot of times you have to kind of just show, hey, my ultimate's ready, my ultimate's ready, my ultimate's ready. Hey, what ults do you guys have? And if you see like maybe a couple other people have their ults too, and still nothing's really happening and everybody's there, just burn it. People are like, well, it's already gone, so we have to go now, kind of have that mentality. So sometimes you can just initiate it by saying, look, it's ready, it's ready, it's ready. Nobody's going. Well, let's just go. I'm going. I mean, sometimes you just need that person just to commit, even if it's a bad commitment time. Yeah. Having that commitment, usually people go with you.
And I would say that as a Lucio, you're probably in the best spot to make calls because you're not necessarily having to focus an entire ton on aiming. You're mostly just spamming in a general area. And most of the time, you're kind of like looking out after your teammates, seeing where they are. You're in the center of the team, so you have really good vision of the whole map. So in regards to this, I would say you should always aim to play your best and communicate your best. Even if your teammates are not necessarily communicating, that doesn't mean that they're not listening. And honestly, if you're providing valuable and relevant information, like that can only help your team. So when your ultimate is up, if you let them know, if you also let them know that your speed boot is ready and that you guys can engage, if you maybe let them know of your intentions, like, hey, we should flank through the left, I can speed boost, then at that point, I guess the ball is in their court, right? Like, are they willing to follow you and coordinate and maybe get a good team push and win the game? Or, I mean, if they don't follow and don't coordinate, then that's up to them. But at least you created that opportunity, right? Like, and then it's up to your teammates to capitalize on it. But I would say it would be even more detrimental if you choose not to communicate because you think that maybe they're not gonna follow through on it. I think that you should always cover yourself and you should always play your best. And as Lucio, honestly, like, you're not in a bad position to be the shot caller if you're into that sort of thing. If you don't like shot calling, at least letting like your team know like basic things like your ultimate, your cooldowns, or if you want them to back out, where you want them to position themselves, that sort of thing.
Yep. Okay, that's basically the show, guys. We're going to take a few minutes just to read a couple iTunes reviews, and those other people that didn't get their iTunes reviews read on the show, we're just going to thank you guys personally for leaving them. And we're going to spend a little bit more time. So if you guys are kind of just done listening to the episode, that's great. But we're going to talk a little bit about some changes coming into the Patreon for those that are interested, and a little bit more about our Discord community if you wanted to learn some more. So if you want to kick off the podcast, it's great, but we'll have a couple other Easter eggs for you at the end. We have some great helpful links we'll mention and some other changes coming. So that being said, let's jump into some iTunes reviews. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 iTunes reviews this week. Wow, you guys are awesome. Thanks so much for
super awesome
sending this in. We got a couple from USA, we got another one from Australia, and we even got one from South Africa. So I'll read the first one. Andres, you can cover the last two. So the first one is from Ozymandias from Australia. Says, good stuff. Thanks for the show, lads. My favorite Overwatch podcast by far. I've been listening only recently, and I'm working my way through the back catalog to learn as much as I can. Really enjoyed the self-improvement discussion and Eichenwald dive deep of the last show. More of that type of stuff would be great. So, yes, we agree. There's never a shortage of content, but there is a shortage of time. So we're trying to prioritize stuff that we think is valuable to us in the fray that week, as well as something that we think long-term will be very helpful. So thank you so much for your review. We really appreciate it. Andres?
All right. We got Sergeant Scallywag from South Africa. He says...
What a name.
Yeah, right? That's pretty cool. Excellent overview of what's happening in Overwatch. Personally, I watch every Overwatch YouTube video as it comes out. This podcast is an excellent overview of strategy and what's happening with the current game meta. Highly recommended listen. Totally support it. That's awesome, man. Yeah, we always try to keep up with what's happening in the game, the new heroes, strategies. So glad you're getting something out of it.
Especially from South Africa.
Yeah, expand your reach, international.
Yeah.
All right, and we also have one from Parker0615 that says, fun and informative. He's from the USA. As a fan of athletic sports, I love Omnic Lab because they talk about team and player strategies in a way that emphasizes role responsibilities. They'll dive deep into Lucio game plans, similar to how ESPN might discuss linebacker strategies for football or lead up hitting strategies in baseball. It might seem daunting on the surface, but the hosts always take care to thoroughly explain their topics to avoid talking over their audience heads. I'll also point out that I'm an Xbox player, so I don't think the show is just for PC folk. That's awesome, Parker.
Wow.
Thank you so much for the review.
Very good to hear.
And we try to keep the show as broad as possible to cover, like general Overwatch strategy that is applicable to most levels of play, and also Xbox, console, PS4, PC. We try to be as cross-platform as possible. Overwatch is a great game that it lends itself to a lot of strategic discussion that is not necessarily just bound to one of these things. So that's awesome, and I'm glad you're getting something out of our episodes.
Speaking of console, just a quick interjection. If you guys jump over to Twitter, we just got a notification this week when somebody had that email that asked about competitive console Overwatch. There is a place that is dedicated to console competitive Overwatch, and it is called the Overguard. So if you guys are looking for them, find them on Twitter at the Overguard. And the other place is called Overwatch CC. So look at those two Twitters for Overguard coverage and ask them some questions, see if you can get involved, jump in. They're very into building their console community of competitive gamers. So please check them out. Little shout out to those guys.
They reached out to us after last episode when we mentioned the Overwatch console leagues and stuff, because we had some listeners that were interested in maybe getting a little more competitive on the console side. So definitely check those out. I checked them out for a bit, and they look pretty legit. It looks like it runs constantly. So if you're a console player and are looking to delve into a little more competitive
stuff. Even.
There you go.
Dad 76 joke of the day. There you go.
But yeah, check it out if you're a console player.
Also, very special thanks to Keith T, Killoff B, Chris Cruz, Hates Paywall, and Patrick C for their awesome iTunes reviews. I'm sorry we couldn't read them on the show. We're really tight for time this week, and we hope you enjoy the show as we continue. We also have two more helpful links this week. Another video from Skyline I came across from some great guys in our Discord linking this video. It's basically talking through the true hero roles within Overwatch, not just offense, defense, tank, support, but really like spammers, hit scan, DPS, like healing support, like main supports, off supports, main tanks, off tanks, those type of things. It's a 9-minute video to kind of really break it down. Skyline has some great content, so I love featuring new creators. And we also have another Overwatch Central video for you about Lucio tips, which I found very helpful because I've been practicing, even with Andres and Shock. I got a couple games in playing Lucio and shared it in our Discord so people can rip my gameplay to shreds and help me learn this hero a little bit better. So go check it out. I think it's very valuable information to kind of separate you from basic to good and then good to great. And so they have some great range of tips in a very short amount of time. All right, Andres, let's talk Patreon. So there's a big announcement for you patrons, so please listen if you can and you have the time. But we have 3 new patrons this week we really want to express our gratitude towards, and I'm frantically looking for them in the show notes here. Here we go. So special thanks to brand new patrons of Dave H, Switch Fox, and Rectangle. You guys are awesome. And Rectangle is spelled with W-R-E-C-T. So it's like, or E-E-C-K-T. So it's like getting wrecked, but rectangle. So really cool pun there. Nice job. Thanks for joining part of the Patreon team, guys. Good to have you in the lab. But we've talked, like my brother actually works part-time for Patreon, and I have a little bit of the workings of what they're rolling out with some of their bigger creators, and what they're rolling out on the baseline as regular creators is this new thing that we might roll out is called pledge and pay. So like as soon as you pledge, you might be able to get a chance to pay what you pledge right there initially, and then it won't rotate around until the next month from that time that you pledged. So we get their money sooner. But They haven't rolled that out for us yet, so we just want to let you know that that is something that their Patreon is actually trying to do for all creators, but is not there currently. But the more important thing is that with Patreon, we want to change how pledges work. So the basics is, instead of donating like Patreon wants you to do, which is the hey, here's a monthly tip. So here's $1 a month, here's $5 a month, $10 a month, however much you want to give per monthly basis, subscription base. But rather, it's becoming a new thing for podcasts, especially, that sometimes we miss a show, or sometimes things don't get rolled out quite the way we want them to, and we might get it. You're not getting your full value of your donation. So we want to basically give you an opportunity to give us a tip at a smaller amount, but more frequently, but you still get billed monthly. So let me explain that. So like, per content piece, you will pay us a pledged tip. So it's like, hey, I'll give you guys $1 an episode. That sounds great. So every month we roll out, roughly 1 episode a week. So 1 episode a week translates to about 4 episodes a month. So $1, $2, $3, $4. You're like, okay, so I've given them $1 per show. And then the same thing translates if you donate more or less. It just multiples of 4 per month. But mentally, it makes sense, right? So you're giving us a tip. Here's a show. Here's a tip. Here's a show. Here's a tip. Here's a show. Here's a tip. That's kind of how it works. But at the same time, we also wanted to have Andres take some time and explain a little bit more about some of the other intricate details here.
Basically, we just want to streamline this process a little more. I think that being able to do... Let me try to explain this in a way that's not confusing to our patrons.
Yeah.
Basically, we want your donations to match our content a little better. Right now, with the model that we're going, it's not working out that well. Like, per month doesn't really fit like how we release content. And it's also kind of a hassle, especially for new patrons, to pledge in the beginning and then have to wait a full month sometimes to be able to get their perks. We don't like that. I know they don't like that. So in this way, at least if you want to support us, the way you can do it, it will match our model a little better. So instead of donating once every month, you'll donate once every week, which matches our release schedule of every episode. And we'll just adjust all the pledges and the rewards accordingly. So the tiers will change a little bit, rather than have a $1, $5, $10, and then $50 tiers. I think we're gonna go with a little more simplified. Anything below $1, $1, $2.50, and $5. And basically, this will be the simplified tiers. We're gonna change a few of the perks that you get. Most of the stuff is gonna stay the same. We're just editing a few of the more unpopular perks for stuff that I think the listeners will be, or the patrons will be a lot more excited about. And then this way, we'll be able to get you your perks in a lot more timely manner. We'll be able to, and we will be able to like deliver content to you guys, I guess a little easier in this way.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure, Andres, that I'll do some more research and get back with our listeners next week. But I'm pretty sure that even though you're pledging a certain dollar amount per show, that they're not getting billed until the end of the month. Because I know some people get salary pay that's based off of a monthly basis and may not like getting billed every week. But it comes out like you're donating per week, but you're only getting billed on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
So I'll do some more research on that, but that's kind of the gist.
Just so you guys know, this stuff is not happening yet. We just wanted to give you guys a heads up. We're still reworking all of the stuff. We'll definitely give you guys ample time before we make all of these changes so that you can adjust to the change accordingly. If you are already a patron and would like to adjust your pledges, we'll give you enough time to do all of this. We'll let you know exactly how things change. We'll probably make a small little newsletter to all of our patrons explaining all of the changes and stuff. So we just want to give you guys a heads up about upcoming changes to the Omnic Lab and how we're going to operate. And just keep you guys updated.
Yeah, so we'll update everything on the Patreon, including the video, the perks, rewards, and then we'll change the dollar amounts for our goals because those will change as well because they're going to be going to per content instead of per month. But again, this is by no means an obligation for you guys as listeners to talk about, hey, I'm donating so much a month. Like, we really appreciate you guys donating. It helps us break even. It helps us even improve the show once we get to certain thresholds and achieve our goals as podcasters. But it is not a necessity. We love doing this show for you, and we also love doing this show for ourselves. So having the community makes it that much more worthwhile and that much more exciting. Don't get us wrong. But we want to make sure Patreon is worth it for everyone and not just us.
Yeah, Patreon is just a way for us to improve the show here and there, small details, help us with some of the financial costs of the show. So we really appreciate to everyone who is donating through there. But of course, all of our content will always be free, and we're just here to create an awesome community where everyone can learn and we can all enjoy this awesome game.
Exactly right. So that being said, this week and next week, we'll make another update/announcement for what we're doing at Patreon on the next show. And then when October rolls around, we'll wait for all of the payments to go through. And then we'll give you more details if you're a current patron especially. And then at some point in October, we'll roll out all the changes. And then by the end of October, everything should be in full swing. So that by beginning of November, everyone's getting billed for the new changes. So it seems fast, but we'll stretch it out over a couple weeks. And I think it'll work out really, really well for everyone. And we also want to say special thanks to from Andres for his microphone. Andres, I'll just let you say special thanks for the donation yet again.
Yeah, as always, thanks to Brian for the awesome mic that he donated to the show. It's been working out super well, and I love it.
Sounds great. All right, that's basically it, guys. We have one more awesome perk for Patreon. I forgot to mention that Andres had come up with, which is called
we'll announce that later.
Review.
We'll announce that later.
But we'll cover you later. Yeah, you may just need to edit that out on the audio portion, but
yep, no worries.
People are listening video, that's fine. Okay, so that's the end of the show, guys. Thanks so much for listening. We're going to now let you know where you can find us individually on the interwebs. So we'll start off with Andres. Andres, where can people find you?
If you personally want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at iPlayGames. You spell that IPLAI Games. And you can also find me streaming on Twitch on this same channel, Twitch TV/Omnic Lab. You can also find me talking about Hearthstone in my other podcast, Coin Concede, with Cora, Kenny, and Cinder. We cover all stuff from metagame to tournament play in Hearthstone. So if you're into that, check out Coin Concede.
All right, you can find me over at Twitter and Instagram with the tag NotRob. You can find my Facebook portfolio, which is it's not been updated in a while, but it's NotRob Media for your photography tips and tricks or looking at what I've done with photography. I also just rolled out a plays.tv account. So if you go to plays.tv/u/NotRob, you can see a couple of my Overwatch games and sometimes Hearthstone. I actually had a really, really crazy Freeze Mage versus Malygos Yogg Druid match that was insane ending. And a few other games where I play with Andres about the Lucio game. You actually have that uploaded, Lucio and Mercy, on defense and attack. So you can go check that out there. You can also find my Hearthstone podcast that talks about budget stuff with Hearthstone cards and collections over at Velen's Chosen on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and our website, velenschosen.com. If you guys want to find more about the Omnic Lab, our Discord is discord.me/Omnic Lab. Go there. The community is great. You can find people to group up on PlayStation, PC, on Xbox. Just go check it out. Hang out, say hello, drop your tag in there, and go play. You can email the show, which is the best way to get your questions on the show, at omniclabpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook with the tag OmnicLab. And you can share the show with your friends. Google Music, iTunes, both of those links are in the Discord, or in the, not the Discord, the show notes. You can also donate to us on patreon.com/OmnicLab, and you can find all of those links in the show notes. And we also have some sweet merch. We got V-necks, we got t-shirts, And fall's coming around the corner, and we might have a little surprise for you guys. We're probably rolling out some hoodies. Just saying. So keep tabs on that. We may make another announcement right around mid-September or end of September, early October. Roll out some hoodies for y'all. All right? Thanks for joining us in the lab. Remember, don't be a lab rat. Be a scientist. Be smart. And duo Q. We'll see you next week, Omnics. Adios.
I have nothing more to teach you. The rest you must learn for yourself.